Welcome to another night under the stars with Sleepytime Chronicles. As you settle in, make yourself comfortable. Fluff your pillows, pull the blankets a little closer, and let the worries of the day melt away. Tonight, we embark on a magical journey back in time to an era of legends and mystic landscapes, the time of the Vikings. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Imagine the serene expanse of a Norwegian landscape, the sky a brilliant canvas of twilight hues. As the world around you quiets, the distant echoes of an ancient past beckon. We are about to step through a portal, not just of place, but of time, unlocking secrets buried under the moss-covered hills of Scandinavia. Let the sound of my voice be your guide as we unravel the tale of 5 friends whose curiosity leads them to a discovery beyond the bounds of time. As we drift into their story, allow the rhythmic cadence of our tale to carry you into a night of peaceful slumber, filled with dreams of Viking longhouses and the soft glow of runestones. So, snuggle in as we journey together into the Viking time warp. Let the adventure soothe your spirit and invite sleep to gently fall upon you like the soft northern sun. Chapter 1: The Discovery. The sky was a brilliant blue over the rugged Norwegian landscape, a perfect backdrop for an archaeological expedition. 5 friends, all students from a renowned university, trekked across the moss-covered hills with shovels slung over their shoulders and maps in hand. Their professor had mentioned that the area might still hold remnants of Viking settlements, buried under centuries of growth and decay. Excitement and anticipation filled the air as they imagined uncovering a piece of history. The group comprised a diverse set of minds. Emma, a budding historian with a keen sense for Norse culture. Lucas, a geology major fascinated by the scars left by time on stones. Mia, whose expertise in folklore drove her towards the myths surrounding the Vikings. Jake, an anthropology student eager to understand ancient human societies. And Zoe, a linguistics student intrigued by Old Norse languages. Together, they formed a formidable team, each bringing their unique perspective to the dig. After hours of careful excavation under the soft northern sun, it was Emma who first hit something solid with her trowel. A clink echoed slightly, different from the usual thuds of earth and stone. They all gathered around, brushes in hand, gently removing the surrounding dirt to reveal what lay beneath. As the earth was brushed away, an ancient runestone emerged, its engravings deep and well preserved. The runes were intricate, looping around each other, forming patterns that spoke of a time long forgotten. Lucas examined the stone closely, identifying the mineral as a type rare for the area, suggesting it was brought here for a significant reason. "Guys, look at this," Mia whispered, pointing to a specific set of runes. "These symbols, they're not just any runes. They're part of a magical stave said to hold significant power." Their curiosity piqued. The friends decided to clear more around the stone, revealing it fully. It was larger than any of them had expected, nearly a meter in height. Its surface a tapestry of etched stories and spells. As the shadows grew longer, the friends decided it was time to pack up. But as they prepared to leave, Lucas accidentally placed his hand on the carved runes. A shimmering light burst from the stone, enveloping everyone in a blinding glow. Panic set in for a fleeting moment before everything went dark. When the light dimmed and their sight returned, the world around them had transformed. The air was colder, the scenery more barren, and in the distance, the unmistakable outline of Viking longhouses stood against the setting sun. They had uncovered more than just a relic. They had activated a gateway to the Viking Age. As the group stood, bewildered by the surroundings that had drastically changed within moments, the realization dawned upon them. They were no longer in the 21st century, but had been hurled back in time, surrounded by the rustic architecture of a Viking village. The cool wind that danced around seemed to whisper secrets of the past as distant figures approached with cautious curiosity. Emma, holding tightly to the now glowing runestone, felt a surge of fear and wonder. "It must have been the runes," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper over the rising wind. "We've triggered some sort of time travel." Lucas, ever the skeptic, squinted at the surroundings, trying to rationalize the situation. "This can't be possible," he said. But the evidence was overwhelming. The ancient structures, the distant fjords, and the unmistakable attire of the approaching figures left no room for doubt. Mia clutched her folklore book tightly against her chest, her eyes wide with awe. In the sagas, runes were more than just writing. They were a bridge between man and the gods, capable of powerful magic. This must be one of those stories come to life. Jake looked around, his anthropological curiosity slowly overtaking his initial shock. If we're really in the Viking Age, we have an unprecedented opportunity to observe and interact with one of history's most fascinating cultures. Zoe, thoughtful, touched the runes on the stone, feeling the vibrations of history under her fingertips. We need to understand this rune's powers. It might be our only chance to get back home. Their discussion was interrupted as a group of Vikings, rugged and imposing, surrounded them. The leader, a tall man with a thick beard and piercing eyes, stepped forward, his gaze shifting from the runestone to the strangers before him. "Who are you, and how did you come to be here?" His voice boomed in Old Norse, a language fortunately familiar to Zoe, who had studied it extensively. "We come in peace," Zoe responded carefully in the same tongue, her pronunciation rough but intelligible. "We are travelers who lost our way." The Vikings exchanged suspicious glances, but the sight of the runestone, still faintly glowing, seemed to soften their demeanor. The leader nodded slowly. "If the stones speak for you, then you shall come with us. We will decide your fate with the elders." As they were escorted to the village, the friends grasped each other's hands, a silent pact to stick together no matter what awaited them. The rune stone, now quiet, seemed an enigmatic key to both their arrival and, they hoped, their eventual return. The heart of the Viking village was a bustling center of life, a stark contrast to the peaceful excavation site they had left behind. Thatched roofs crowned the robust timber houses that lined the muddy streets, and the air was filled with the mingling scents of smoked fish, fresh pine, and the iron tang of a nearby forge. As the group walked through the village, escorted by their Viking captors, they observed with academic fascination. Emma took mental notes on the layout of the village, which seemed to center around a large communal hall, likely the place where they would meet the village elders. The hall was a massive structure, adorned with intricate carvings that depicted scenes of battle and celebration, the legends of the Norse gods, and the wild creatures of Scandinavian folklore. The interior was even more impressive, with long tables set for what appeared to be an upcoming feast, and shields and weapons decorating the walls. The leader, who had first confronted them, gestured for them to sit at one end of the hall. As they waited, Jake whispered to the group, "Notice the social structure at play. The warriors sit nearer the head of the table, while craftsmen and farmers fill out the sides. Soon, an elderly man with a long white beard, wearing a robe adorned with similar runes to those on the stone, entered the hall. He was followed by a woman of similar age, her hair braided intricately, her presence commanding. These, they understood, were the village elders. Zoe stood, using her rudimentary Old Norse to explain their situation once again, this time in more detail. She spoke of the runestone, careful not to reveal too much about their origins from the future, fearing it might incite fear or hostility. The elder man listened intently, occasionally stroking his beard, then spoke in a firm but not unkind voice. "You carry the mark of the runes, strangers. This is both a blessing and a burden. You will stay among us, learn our ways. Perhaps the gods have sent you for a purpose." As they were led to a small house where they would be staying, Mia leaned close to Emma. This could be a sign, a part of the miracle. We're not just lost in time. We're here for a reason. We need to discover what that is. That night, under the roof of a Viking home, the friends lay on rough woolen blankets, the reality of their situation settling in. They were no longer just students. They had become part of a larger narrative, woven by the threads of time and the enigmatic power of the runes. Their first full day among the Vikings began at dawn. The village was alive with the sounds of clanging metal, bleating livestock, and the rhythmic thumping of workers tending to their crafts. The friends were quickly swept up in the day's activities, each assigned to a different task as part of their integration. Lucas was taken to the forge, where the heat from the fires melded with the sparks of flying metal as he attempted to learn the art of blacksmithing under the watchful eye of Eric, a burly man with hands as rough as the iron he hammered. "Strength and patience," Eric grunted, showing Lucas the technique for shaping a blade. Emma and Mia were guided to the weaving sheds, where the women of the village taught them the patterns that told stories of the gods and monsters of Norse mythology. The rhythmic shuttle of the loom and the soft threads between her fingers gave Emma a meditative peace, a stark contrast to the chaotic jumble of her thoughts about their situation. Jake and Zoe, meanwhile, were with the village hunters, learning to track and hunt in the dense woods that bordered the village. The crisp air was a jolt to their senses, sharpened further by the immediacy of their survival training. "Watch and learn," said the hunt leader, a lean man named Leif, as he demonstrated how to read the signs left by a passing deer. Throughout the day, their initial encounters with the Vikings shifted from wariness to a cautious acceptance. The villagers observed their strange new guests, intrigued by their quick learning and unfamiliar accents, but appreciative of their earnest efforts to contribute. As the sun began to set, the group reconvened at their assigned house, each sharing tales of their day's adventures. It was clear that despite the hardships and the initial shock of their situation, a respect was beginning to form between them and the Vikings. They were no longer just oddities from another time, but were becoming part of the village's daily rhythm. "This is incredible," Zoe said, excitement lacing her tired voice. "Every moment here is a lesson in history, a living museum." "Yes, but we mustn't forget why we're here," Jake replied, his tone serious. "We need to find a way back. We can't lose sight of the runestone's significance." That evening, as they ate a meal of stewed meat and hearty bread with the villagers, the group felt a mingling of apprehension and awe. They were living a miracle, thrown back in time by a power they barely understood. Each day, a dance on the edge of history. As night fell over the Viking village, the 5 friends gathered around the communal fire in the center of the settlement, surrounded by new faces that were slowly becoming more familiar. The Norsemen shared their hearty laughter and tales of distant raids and local lore, a stark reminder of the rugged life these warriors led. Emma, still fascinated by the culture, listened intently as an elder recounted a battle with a neighboring tribe, emphasizing the valor and strategy of the Viking warriors. The story was punctuated by the elder's deep voice and the occasional clank of drinking horns. Beside her, Mia scribbled notes, her eyes alight with the thrill of hearing first-hand accounts that had only been dry text in her folklore books. Lucas, a bit distant from the tales of war, engaged with a group of younger villagers, learning a game of skill involving small carved stones. His laughter, mixed with his fumbled attempts at the game, drew a crowd that cheered him on, their initial reserve fading in the face of his genuine enthusiasm. Zoe, meanwhile, used the opportunity to deepen her linguistic skills, practicing the Old Norse she had studied. Each phrase she correctly spoke brought nods of approval from the villagers, their stern faces breaking into smiles at her earnest efforts. Jake found himself among the village craftsmen, discussing the construction of longships. The intricacy of the designs and the craftsmanship required were far beyond what he had expected, and he realized just how advanced the Viking society was in terms of naval technology. As the fire crackled into the night, the group shared a meal of smoked fish and rough bread with the villagers. The food was simple but filling, and as they ate, they felt an increasing connection to this time and its people, a bond forged by shared food and firelight. After the meal, a lyre was brought out, and the villagers sang songs of the gods, Odin, Thor, and Freya. The melodies were haunting, a mix of deep throat singing and higher lilting voices that seemed to resonate with the very soul of the land around them. That night, as they returned to their small house, the friends discussed their experiences. "It's like we're living in one of the sagas Mia always talks about," Emma whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Yeah, but we have to remember, this isn't just an adventure. It's a chance to learn. Maybe even find a way to use the runestone again, Lucas added, the weight of their responsibility never far from his mind. They agreed, all feeling the dual thrill and burden of their situation. As they settled into their blankets, the sounds of the village at night lulling them into sleep, each knew that this journey through time was shaping them in ways they had never anticipated. The dawn of a new day brought with it a fresh layer of frost, glinting under the rising sun as the village slowly stirred to life. For the friends, each morning began to forge them anew as they continued to immerse themselves into the Viking lifestyle. Each task teaching them the vital skills needed to survive and thrive in this ancient era. Lucas, once unsure around the flames and metals of the blacksmith's forge, now swung the hammer with increasing confidence. Under Eric's gruff guidance, he had crafted his first knife, its blade rough but serviceable. "You have the heart of a craftsman," Eric had said, clapping him on the back with a rare smile. Emma and Mia had taken to the looms with a blend of academic interest and genuine skill. The patterns they wove began to tell their own stories, not just of gods and monsters, but of travelers from afar, a narrative they subtly infused into the traditional designs. The village women, initially distant, now shared their own secrets of the craft, intertwining threads and tales alike. Zoe's grasp of Old Norse blossomed, allowing her deeper conversations with the villagers. Her growing fluency opened new doors to understanding not just the language, but the people themselves. She listened intently to their histories, their beliefs, capturing the nuances of their speech and the wisdom it conveyed. Jake, meanwhile, continued to learn from the shipbuilders, his hands becoming as calloused as the wood he worked. The long ship they were constructing was nearly ready for its maiden voyage, and he had been invited to join the crew, a sign of trust and acceptance he cherished deeply. One afternoon, as they gathered for a brief respite by the village stream, the friends reflected on their journey thus far. "We've come a long way from being just lost students," Jake said, watching the clear water rush over smooth stones. "We're part of this village now, part of its heartbeat," Mia added, her voice tinged with a mix of pride and nostalgia for the modern comforts they still missed. "It's more than just survival," Emma mused. "It feels like we were meant to come here, like this is a part of our story that was waiting to be told." Lucas looked at the runestone, which he had begun to carry with him always. And yet, this stone is a reminder of our duty to find a way back. We're tied to two worlds now. Zoe nodded, her eyes reflecting a determined light. Let's keep learning, keep understanding. The key to our return is here, somewhere in the life we're building, in the language and customs, in the ties we forged. As they returned to their daily tasks, the runestone seemed almost to pulse with an energy of its own, a silent sentinel to their dual existence. With each passing day, they wove their lives further into the fabric of the Viking world. Each thread a step towards unraveling the mystery of their journey through time. Chapter 2: The Challenge. The tranquil life of the Viking village was shattered one crisp morning by the blast of a horn, a deep, resonating sound that echoed across the fjords and through the heart of every villager. The friends, now somewhat accustomed to the routines of daily life, felt a stir of unease as the urgent tone summoned the warriors to the village center. Lucas, who had just finished sharpening the blade he crafted, exchanged worried glances with Jake, who was returning from the forest with a group of hunters. They converged with Emma, Mia, and Zoe at the edge of the throng gathering around the chieftain. Standing atop a raised platform, the chieftain, a formidable leader named Ragnar, spoke with a commanding presence that quieted the murmuring crowd. Warriors of the North, the time has come to defend our lands. A rival clan has challenged our claim to the northern fjords. We must answer their challenge, not just to preserve our territory, but to uphold our honor. The friends listened, the gravity of the situation sinking in. They had learned of Viking valor and the importance of honor in battle. But the reality of joining an actual conflict was daunting. Emma felt a surge of fear mixed with adrenaline. She had studied countless battles in her academic career, but facing the prospect of real combat was entirely different. Beside her, Mia grasped her hand, her own face pale, but set with determination. Ragnar's gaze swept over his people, pausing on the group of friends. You have come to us from afar, shown yourselves to be true to our ways. Will you stand with us? The decision was heavy, the air thick with anticipation. Lucas stepped forward, his voice steady. We will stand with you. We are part of this village now, and we will defend it as our own. Cheers erupted around them, the solidarity of the village palpable. The friends were swept up in the preparations, each tasked with different responsibilities. Lucas and Jake were to join the ranks of fighters, while Emma and Mia helped with strategizing supplies and medical aid. Zoe, with her command of the language, served as a liaison among the different factions of the alliance. As they prepared, the weight of history pressed upon them. Not just the history of the Vikings, but their own histories, intertwined now with this ancient past. That night, under a sky pierced by countless stars, they gathered around the fire once more. The warmth of the flames did little to quell the chill of apprehension that settled over them. They spoke little, each lost in their thoughts about the coming day. The following morning dawned with a stark beauty, the sun rising over a land on the brink of war. As they donned the armor and grasped the weapons forged from Viking iron, the friends felt a kinship not just with each other, but with all who had ever stood at the crossroads of fear and courage. The evening before the battle, the air in the village was thick with the smell of roasting meat and the tangy scent of mead. A great feast was prepared, an ancient tradition meant to bolster the courage of the warriors and fortify the bonds among them. The long hall was alive with the sound of laughter and the clang of cups, as tales of past glories and the promise of valor to come were shared across the tables. The friends were seated close to Ragnar, a place of honor that reflected their acceptance and the high regard in which they were held by the village. Torches cast flickering shadows on the walls, illuminating the murals of gods and mythical beasts that seemed to watch over the gathering. As the feast progressed, Ragnar stood, raising his cup high. The hall quieted, all eyes turning toward him. Tonight, we are more than just a village, more than just warriors. We are a family, bound by the promise to protect our home and each other. To our new friends who have come to us from beyond the known worlds, we offer our thanks. May the strength of the gods be with you. The toast was met with a resounding chorus of approval. Cups were raised, and the friends felt a surge of warmth and acceptance that went beyond simple camaraderie. They were now a part of this community, embraced by its heart and soul. Lucas, touched by the gesture, stood to respond. His Norse, now fluent and confident, carried across the hall. We came to you as strangers, but you have welcomed us as your own. Tomorrow, we fight not just for this village, but for the new home you have given us. The Vikings responded with loud cheers, thumping on the tables and shouting words of encouragement. The feast continued into the night with more songs and stories, each warrior sharing their hopes and fears for the battle ahead. Mia, ever the observer, noted the rituals that accompanied the feast, the exchange of tokens, the blessings invoked by the elders, the sacred carvings offered to the gods. she realized that these were not just cultural expressions, but deeply held beliefs that defined the Viking spirit. Emma spent the evening talking with the village healers, learning about the herbs and salves prepared for the wounds of battle. She was struck by the blend of practical knowledge and spiritual rituals that accompanied each preparation. Jake and Zoe mingled with the warriors, listening to their individual tales of past battles, absorbing every detail. Jake, with his anthropologist's heart, understood that these stories were the living history of the people, each one a thread in the larger tapestry of Viking culture. As the night drew to a close, the friends returned to their quarters, their minds full of the evening's events. They lay in the quiet, each aware of the challenge that awaited them at dawn. The Feast of Valor had not only prepared them for battle, but had woven their fates even tighter with the Viking warriors they would stand beside. The night was short, and as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the village awoke to a day of destiny. Armed with the blessings of last night's feast and the strength of newfound bonds, the friends readied themselves not just to face a battle, but to honor the trust and fellowship of their Viking family. As the dawn mist lifted, the friends joined the ranks of Viking warriors marching toward the northern fjords, the site chosen for the confrontation. The air was crisp, filled with the tension of impending battle and the muted sounds of a marching host. The path took them through dense woodlands, the terrain rugged and unwelcoming, mirroring the uncertainty in their hearts. The battle began as a clash of shields and cries, the air soon thick with the din of combat. Lucas and Jake fought side by side, their earlier training with the village warriors helping them hold their own despite their inexperience in real combat. Emma, Mia, and Zoe, positioned near the rear, assisted with the wounded, their hands quickly becoming as stained as their warrior counterparts. As the battle raged, a sudden call of retreat from a segment of the Viking line turned into a chaotic melee. In the confusion, the group of friends found themselves cut off from the main force, pushed deeper into the northern wilds by the need to evade a flanking enemy group. Surrounded by dense fog and the unfamiliar, harsh landscape, they realized they were lost. With the sounds of battle distant, they were forced to rely on their limited knowledge of the land and the survival skills they had hastily learned. The wilds of Scandinavia were unforgiving, a maze of hidden valleys and treacherous passes. Lucas took the lead, his recent experience in the forge lending him a certain resilience. "We need to find high ground, get our bearings," he suggested, his voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. They climbed a steep ridge, the effort leaving them breathless, but providing a vantage point. Below, through breaks in the trees, they could see parts of the battlefield, the clash of forces still ongoing, a tapestry of movement and tumult. "Look," Zoe pointed towards a distant river that cut through the landscape. "That river must lead back to the fjord. If we follow it, we should be able to rejoin our clan." Their descent was cautious, the forest floor slippery and uneven. As they navigated through thick underbrush, Mia kept a close eye on the flora, her knowledge of local herbs helping them avoid poisonous plants. As night approached, they found a sheltered grove where they could rest. The fire they built was small, more for warmth than light, as they kept wary of drawing unwanted attention. Huddled around the flames, they shared their fears and hopes. Jake, looking into the flickering light, spoke up. "Today, we fought not just for survival, but for something bigger than ourselves. No matter what comes, that means something." His words, simple and heartfelt, resonated with the rest. They had been thrust into this ancient conflict, but through it, they had found a new depth to their friendship and a new understanding of the people they had come to live among. That night, under a canopy of ancient stars, they found a semblance of peace in the wilds that had tested them. Tomorrow, they would make their way back to the battlefield. But for now, they rested, bound by their shared ordeal, a brotherhood forged not just in the feasts of valor, but in the quiet moments of vulnerability. By dawn, the friends had navigated their way out of the wilds, guided by the river's meandering path. Though weary from their unexpected journey, their spirits lifted as they recognized the outskirts of the battlefield, now quiet and somber with the aftermath of conflict. The air hung heavy with the scent of earth and iron, a silent testament to the previous day's chaos. Before returning to the village, they decided to seek the wisdom of the village seer, an enigmatic figure who lived alone at the edge of the forest. Known for her deep knowledge of the runes and prophecies, she was both revered and feared by the villagers. Approaching her simple hut, they found the seer tending to her herbs in the early morning light. Her presence was both comforting and imposing, a duality that seemed to define the mystics of this age. Zoe, taking the lead as she had many times before, greeted the seer in fluent Norse, explaining their recent trials and seeking her guidance. "We are lost, not just in location, but in purpose. Can you offer us any insight that might guide our path forward?" The seer peered into each of their faces, her eyes sharp, yet not unkind. She motioned for them to follow her into the hut, where the air was thick with the scent of dried herbs and the smoke of a small fire. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, the seer cast runes made from bones and stones, her chants soft and rhythmic. The runes clattered on the wooden floor, forming patterns only she could read. After a long moment of contemplation, she spoke, her voice low and resonant. The runes speak of a journey not yet completed, a challenge not fully met. Your presence here is no accident. It is bound by the threads of fate, woven by the Norns themselves. Lucas, puzzled, asked, "But what does that mean for us? Are we to stay here forever?" The seer shook her head slowly. The wheel of time turns, but it is not unyielding. You have a role to play, a debt to fulfill to the timeline you have altered. The key to your return lies where your journey began. Emma quickly understood the implication. The rune stone, it brought us here. It must also be the way back. The seer nodded, her gaze intense. Guard it well, for it is more than a key. It is a gateway, a holder of power. You must prove yourselves worthy to wield it. As they left the seer's hut, the group felt a renewed sense of purpose. The cryptic advice was not a direct solution, but it provided a direction, a path they would need to follow, guided by their experiences and the mystical forces at play in this ancient land. With the seer's words echoing in their minds, they returned to the village, ready to face whatever tasks were necessary to prove their worth and hopefully return home. The friends returned to the village with a heavier sense of responsibility, carrying the seer's foreboding words with them. As they approached, they were greeted with the somber joy of survivors and the relief of warriors returned from battle. The village, though victorious, bore the scars of conflict, with many warriors injured and some lives mournfully lost. The next days were spent aiding the village in recovery. Lucas and Jake helped repair damaged structures and fortify defenses, their earlier training in craftsmanship now serving a critical purpose. Emma and Mia, under the guidance of the village healers, tended to the wounded, applying the herbal remedies they had learned. Zoe continued to bridge communications, her role as a linguist proving invaluable in coordinating aid and sharing crucial information. Their efforts did not go unnoticed. One evening, as the village gathered to honor those who had fallen, Ragnar called the friends forward. Before the assembly, he spoke warmly of their bravery and sacrifice, declaring them not just friends, but true kin of the village. This bond of brotherhood and sisterhood, Ragnar proclaimed, is forged in the fires of adversity. You have shown yourselves to be as much a part of this clan as any born to it. The villagers cheered, embracing them, their acceptance complete. The friends felt an overwhelming surge of belonging, their hearts swelling with both pride and the poignant realization of how deeply entwined their lives had become with those of the Vikings. Later that night, gathered around a new fire, the group reflected on their journey. We came here lost, and now we find ourselves a part of a story we never imagined, Mia mused, her voice thick with emotion. Jake nodded, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames. And perhaps that's the key. The seer said we have a role to play, a debt to the timeline. Maybe it's not just about finding our way back, but about what we leave behind. Their conversation deepened into the night, discussing possibilities and the looming presence of the rune stone, which Lucas kept close at all times. They agreed that their next steps needed to be thoughtful, balancing their desire to return home with the responsibilities they had embraced here. As dawn broke over the village, casting a golden glow on the thatched roofs, the friends felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer merely survivors of an accidental journey through time, but active participants in a historic tapestry woven into the fabric of Viking destiny. With the bonds of brotherhood firmly established, they prepared for the final part of their challenge, the event that would test their worthiness and potentially pave their way home. As the week drew to a close, the tension within the village heightened in anticipation of the duel that was to decide the fate of the Northern Territories once and for all. The rival clan, having regrouped and rekindled their challenge, sent forth a champion, a giant of a man known throughout the fjords for his brutal strength and merciless tactics in combat. The village needed a champion of their own, and surprisingly, it was Lucas who stepped forward. His journey from a student of geology to a craftsman of Viking weaponry had prepared him in ways he could never have imagined. His decision was met with mixed emotions from his friends, pride interlaced with stark fear for his safety. The morning of the duel was clear and cold, the frost on the ground mirroring the chill in their hearts. The village gathered in a wide clearing by the river, the spot marked by ancient stones, a place where countless disputes had been settled in accordance with the old ways. Lucas, adorned in the armor he had helped forge, felt the weight of the village's expectations on his shoulders. Emma, Mia, Zoe, and Jake stood by him, their faces a mixture of anxiety and unwavering support. Ragnar clasped Lucas's shoulder, offering last-minute counsel with a firm, reassuring grip. Remember, it is not just strength that wins a duel, but heart. Fight with honor, Lucas. As the rival champion approached, the air thickened with the tense breaths of the onlookers. He was indeed formidable, his armor etched with symbols of his many victories. Lucas steadied his breathing, his grip on his sword firm, his friends' supportive glances fueling his resolve. The duel commenced with the clash of steel, the sound ringing out across the silent crowd. Lucas moved with a precision that belied his limited training. Each parry and thrust a testament to his rapid adaptation to Viking warfare. The rival, relying on brute force, found it difficult to land a blow on Lucas, who danced away from each attack with surprising agility. As the battle wore on, Lucas found an opening, a brief lapse in the giant's defense, and with a combination of luck and skill, managed to disarm his opponent. The crowd gasped, then erupted in cheers as Lucas stood over the fallen champion, his sword pointed at his adversary, but his face showing no desire for further bloodshed. The duel was decided. Honor and territory had been defended without the loss of life, a resolution that earned Lucas not only the overwhelming respect of both clans, but also reinforced the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood that tied him and his friends to this ancient community. In the aftermath, as the village celebrated, the seer approached the group, her eyes reflecting the flames of the bonfire. You have proven your worth, not by the sword alone, but by the strength of your heart and the purity of your intent, she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of prophecy. The time is near for your return, but know that the path back will require as much courage as the path you walked here. The friends gathered close, their faces lit by the firelight, feeling the dual pull of longing for home and the bonds they had formed here. They knew now that the rune stone's power was tied to their actions, their honor, and their hearts. With the duel behind them, they faced the future with a newfound readiness to tackle the final challenge, returning to their own time, carrying with them the lessons. The emotions were palpable as the friends prepared for their final departure from the Viking Age. The village had gathered, forming a circle around them. The faces of those they had come to love, marked with expressions of both joy for the peace they had helped achieve and sorrow at the farewell. Ragnar, the chieftain, stepped forward, his presence commanding yet warm. You arrived as strangers from the mist and became warriors, healers, and friends. You have changed us, as we have changed you, he declared, his voice strong, yet tinged with sadness. One by one, each villager came forward to say their goodbyes. Lucas received a finely crafted sword from Eric, the blacksmith, a symbol of his bravery and spirit. Emma was given a scroll, carefully bound and covered in intricate leatherwork, containing stories of the village and its history, a gift from the elders. Mia was presented with a small pouch of herbs and seeds by the village healers, a token of their shared knowledge and her newfound skills. Zoe, for her part, was given a set of runestones by the seer, a nod to her linguistic prowess and deep connection to their culture. Jake received a model of a Viking longship, crafted by the very shipbuilders he had worked alongside, symbolizing the journeys they had all undertaken. With each gift, promises were made. Promises to remember, to cherish the lessons learned, and to honor the bonds forged. The friends, overwhelmed by the depth of their integration into Viking life, made their own vows to carry forward the values and strengths they had absorbed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the village, they gathered at the edge of the forest, the portal where they would make their return. Ragnar's final words to them were a benediction, a wish for safe travels, and a life well lived, spoken in the robust tones of the Old Norse they had come to understand so well. Tears were shed, hugs exchanged, and as the friends stepped into the circle marked by ancient stones, they felt the weight of leaving a part of themselves behind. With a final look back, they activated the runestone, the glow enveloping them once more, pulling them across the boundaries of time. The transition was swift, a blur of light and sensation, and as it faded, they found themselves back at the archaeological site. Their equipment and modern clothes, stark reminders of their original lives. The silence that followed was filled with a profound sense of completion. Chapter 3: The Return. The celebrations following the duel lasted well into the night, but for Lucas and his friends, there was an undercurrent of anticipation and anxiety about what was to come. The seer's words lingered in their minds, a reminder that their journey was not yet complete. They knew that the key to their return lay with the runestone, and as the dawn approached, they gathered in the quiet of the longhouse to discuss their next steps. Emma laid out the old maps they had studied, the lines and markers now familiar. According to the seer, the runestone's power is linked to its place of origin. We need to return it there, she explained, pointing to a remote area on the map, where the terrain was marked by ancient forests and steep ravines. Mia nodded, her eyes serious. We've learned so much about these people and their land. It feels right that our leaving should be tied to respecting their traditions, their sacred places. With the plan in place, they set out at first light, the rune stone wrapped carefully in a piece of leather, its surface cool and almost pulsing beneath their fingers. The journey took them through the village one last time, where the Vikings, now their family in spirit if not in blood, lined the path to bid them farewell. The trek to the rune stone's original location was quiet, each step taking them further from their life among the Vikings and closer to the uncertainty of their own time. They walked through landscapes that whispered of old gods and ancient battles, the history of the land steeped in every leaf and stone. Upon reaching the site, a clearing ringed by towering oaks, they felt a palpable shift in the air, a sense of coming full circle. Lucas, holding the rune stone, stepped forward. This feels like the right place. Everything started here for us. They arranged the stone at the base of the largest oak, its carvings facing skyward. Zoe, her voice steady but filled with emotion, recited a farewell in Old Norse, a tribute to the people and the era that had changed them forever. As Lucas placed his hand on the runestone, the air shimmered, and the familiar glow enveloped them once again. The pull was stronger this time, a sure sign that their return journey was at hand. They held on to each other, their bond a tangible strength as the light grew blinding. When the light faded, they found themselves back at the dig site, the modern world buzzing around them as if no time had passed. Back at the archaeological site, the tranquility of their return was abruptly shattered. The team soon discovered they were not alone. A group of treasure hunters, drawn by rumors of valuable artifacts, had been watching the dig site, and the reactivation of the runestone had not gone unnoticed. Lucas spotted them first, a suspicious movement at the edge of the clearing. He alerted the others just as the group approached, their intentions clear from the greed in their eyes and the equipment they carried. "We've come for the stone," the leader of the hunters declared, his voice a rough growl. "Hand it over and nobody gets hurt." The friends exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between them. They had faced much worse in the Viking Age, and were not about to give up the runestone so easily, especially knowing its potential power and historical significance. "Sorry, but this belongs to history, not to the highest bidder," Mia responded firmly, stepping forward. Her stance was confident, a reflection of the countless challenges she had overcome in the past. The confrontation escalated quickly. The treasure hunters were numerous, but lacked the cohesion and purpose that bound the friends together. Lucas and Jake used their combat skills learned from Viking battles, while Emma, Mia, and Zoe created diversions, using their archaeological tools as makeshift weapons. As the skirmish continued, the runestone began to glow, seemingly reacting to the conflict around it. The air vibrated with energy, the pulse of history flowing through the clearing. Realizing the stone's power was beyond their control, the leader of the hunters hesitated, his confidence waning. This moment of doubt gave the friends the upper hand, and they managed to push the intruders back, driving them away from the site. As the last of the hunters retreated, the friends regrouped, breathing heavily but unscathed. The runestone's light dimmed, settling back into its ancient, inert state. "We need to ensure this never happens again," Lucas said, looking down at the stone. "It's too dangerous to remain here, unprotected." The group agreed, deciding to transfer the runestone to a secure location where it could be studied and preserved safely, ensuring its protection from those who would use its power for personal gain. As they prepared the stone for transport, their hearts were heavy, yet hopeful. They had defended the integrity of their discovery. With the immediate threat over, the friends gathered once more around the runestone, now safely encased for transport to a university museum where it could be studied and protected. The sun was setting, casting a golden light over the site that had become a second home, a portal to another time that had changed them in ways they could never have imagined. As they stood there, the reality of their adventure settling in, they each took a moment to reflect on their journey. The challenges faced, the bonds formed, and the personal growth each had experienced. Lucas, who had stepped forward as a leader and protector, felt a deep sense of accomplishment, but also a pang of loss for the Viking friends left behind. "I never thought I'd find so much of myself in the past," he mused, his hand resting on the hilt of the sword given to him by Eric. Emma, who had documented their experiences in a journal, felt a scholarly excitement about the historical insights they had gained, tempered by a melancholic longing for the simplicity and camaraderie of Viking life. "We have so much to share, so many stories that can change how we understand history," she said, her voice tinged with nostalgia. Mia, now profoundly connected to the natural world through her experiences with Viking herbalism, felt a renewed purpose. I want to explore how ancient knowledge can complement modern medicine. There's wisdom there that shouldn't be lost, she declared, determined to bridge the past and the present in her future work. Zoe, who had bonded deeply with the village seer, felt an enduring fascination with the power of language and narrative. Our words carry more weight than we know. They can transcend time, she reflected, her mind already weaving the tale they would tell. Jake, inspired by the craftsmanship and engineering of the Viking ships, contemplated a new direction for his studies. There's a whole aspect of design and construction that I want to explore further. Who knows what else we can learn from the past, he pondered, his eyes alight with possibilities. As they prepared to leave the site, they placed their hands together, a gesture that had become a symbol of their unity and shared resolve. We went through something incredible together, Jake said. And no matter where we go next, this experience will bind us forever. They agreed to meet annually at the site, a promise to keep the memory of their journey alive and to continue supporting each other in their individual pursuits, inspired by their time among the Vikings. With one last look at the setting sun, they turned away from the dig site, their steps firm and their hearts full. The rune stone might remain behind, under glass and guard, but the lessons it had taught them were engraved in their spirits, as enduring as the stone itself. As they walked away from the dig site, their steps echoed the rhythm of a journey completed, but their integration back into modern life proved to be a challenge of its own. The world they returned to was subtly altered, not in overt, dramatic ways, but in the undercurrents of their own perceptions and the small changes that their absence had influenced. Upon their return to the university, they found their peers intrigued and somewhat bewildered by the maturity and depth they now exhibited. Each friend began to see the modern world through the lens of their Viking experiences, valuing things they had once overlooked: community, resilience, the profound connection between the past and present. Lucas noticed that his approach to studies had changed. He now saw history as a living, breathing entity, something he had experienced firsthand rather than read about in textbooks. His professors noted his insightful contributions, which drew from a deep well of personal experience. Emma's journal became the basis for a thesis that challenged conventional historical narratives. She proposed new theories about Viking society, enriched by the authentic experiences she had lived through. Her work caught the attention of leading historians who were intrigued by her unique perspective. Mia, inspired by her time with the village healers, pursued ethnobotany, studying the medicinal uses of plants across different cultures. She found herself collaborating with experts in traditional medicine, bridging the gap between ancient wisdom and modern science. Zoe turned her adventure into a best-selling book, weaving the story of their journey with reflections on the power of language and myth. Her book not only captivated readers, but also sparked discussions in academic circles about the role of linguistics in understanding culture. Jake, inspired by the Viking shipbuilders, enrolled in an engineering program with a focus on sustainable and historical design principles. He started working on projects that integrated ancient techniques with modern technologies, aiming to create structures that were both environmentally friendly and deeply inspired by historical insights. The friends also noticed subtle shifts in the community around the archaeological site. The local historical society, once struggling for funding and interest, experienced a renaissance as the story of the runestone and its implications spread. Lucas and his friends became patrons, using their newfound fame to advocate for historical preservation and education. Their personal lives, too, were influenced by their time-traveled wisdom. Relationships were approached with the same loyalty and depth they had observed and practiced among the Vikings. This approach brought them closer to their families and friends, who noticed the profound growth and maturity in their interactions. As they settled into their new paths, they realized that their journey had altered them in irreversible, meaningful ways. They had left as students and returned as pioneers of a new understanding, merging the best of the past with the hopes of the future. The impact of their Viking experiences was felt not only in their academic and professional careers, but also in how they viewed the world. They became advocates for a broader, more inclusive view of history, one that recognized the interconnectedness of all cultures and times. Months had passed since their return, yet the miracle of their journey through time continued to resonate deeply within each friend. Gathered at a small conference where they had been invited to speak about their extraordinary experience, they reflected on the impact of their adventure, both on themselves and on the wider world. As they prepared for their presentation, backstage at the conference hall, filled with eager historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts, Emma looked at her friends. "Can you believe how far we've come?" she asked, a smile playing on her lips. From digging in the dirt to speaking in front of all these people about bending time. Lucas adjusted his notes, his confidence a far cry from the uncertain student he once was. We didn't just travel through time, we brought back something invaluable. This, he gestured to their prepared slideshow, filled with images of the runestone, the Viking village, and scenes of their integration into the ancient community. This is a testament to the power of experience over theory. Mia nodded, her thoughts on the herbal knowledge she had brought back, now being integrated into modern medical studies. We've given history a heartbeat, she said, and shown that the past has lessons that are timeless. Zoe, whose book had sparked a renewed interest in the linguistic ties between ancient and modern languages, added, "We've also proven that myths and legends, the stories we tell, are not just tales. They are bridges to who we were and who we can become." Jake, the last to speak, looked at the model of a Viking ship he had brought along, a symbol of the ingenuity they had witnessed. "And we've seen firsthand how the past can inspire future innovations. These designs," he said, pointing to the ship, "they're going to change how we think about sustainable building." As they took the stage, the applause was warm and welcoming. Their presentation went beyond the scientific and historical implications of their findings. It spoke of personal growth, of friendship, and of the profound connections that defy time and space. Their story captivated the audience, leaving many in awe and others skeptical. But no one could deny the sincerity and the transformation evident in each friend. The questions that followed were filled with curiosity and wonder, and as they answered, they each felt the weight and the wonder of their journey. After the conference, as they gathered for dinner, the conversation turned reflective. "What we experienced, it changed us," Lucas said, raising his glass. "To time, to history, and to us who lived to tell the tale. To miracles," Mia added, her voice soft. "To family," Emma concluded, "both past and future." The evening ended with promises to continue their research and explorations, each in their own way, but forever connected by the shared miracle of their journey. They were no longer just scholars of history. They were part of it, movers in a narrative that stretched beyond textbooks and lectures. As they parted ways, the runestone safely housed in a museum where it sparked wonder and debate, they knew that their adventure was just the beginning. History, they had learned, was not just about the past. It was a living, breathing entity, and they were its chroniclers, its students, and its teachers. Their story, a modern miracle woven into the fabric of time, would continue to inspire, challenge, and intrigue, a legend in its own right. waiting for the next curious soul to uncover its truths.